Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Let me turn this up. How are you? How's my soul family, my soul tribe? I missed you. I'm so sorry. I haven't had time to do a video in a couple of weeks. My work schedule, my hours kind of being funky and closing a lot. I just haven't had time. I've had doctor's appointments and all kinds of stuff. So I hope you all are doing well. My goodness, lots of things going on. There's a few things that I need to tell you. Um, Basically, energies are very strong as usual still. Um, Lots of sinus pressure in the head right here in your third eye, like everything. I've had so much sinus pressure, a lot of ear problems. Um, So maybe some of you have been feeling that as well. I want to tell you about an experience that I had um, a couple of weeks ago. I was laying in bed asleep, and about two or three in the morning, I woke up out of my sleep. Now my door was cracked, and you know, other people in the house were awake, but um, it wasn't them. I literally woke up, and on my ceiling in my bedroom, I saw this tremendous, brilliant white flashing light. It was like a pulsating, and it did it about 4 or 5 times really quick, and it almost looked like an eyeball, like an iris. It was really weird, and I had tried to rationalize it, and I'd never seen anything like that before. And there's no way it could have been a glare from anything. Um, I yelled out to the other people in the house, like, "Did you see that? Like, what the hell?" I said, "What the hell was that?" And I said, "Did you see that?" And nobody replied. So obviously, no one else saw it but me. So I did some research, and I found one website where a guy was saying that if you see a brilliant white flashing light, that it's an angel. So, and I found some other videos on YouTube, them confirming that these white flashing lights are angels. And I kind of was blown away, because if you follow my work, and lately I've been following, doing Alex Collier's webinars. He talks about, a few webinars back, he talked about the angels coming into our realm. And if you've been following my videos too, you know that I've had experiences in the past where I've had huge orbs, glowing orbs in my room. I always thought it was my mother after she passed. So I've seen orbs, but I had never seen a white light like this before. And I wasn't afraid, I wasn't afraid at all, but I didn't get any message from it, or I'm just not, I don't know. So maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. But I wanted to let you guys know that, and see if maybe anybody else is seeing these lights. Who knows? But anyway, I wanted to show you a couple things before we get into the webinar. So I found these at work, and I had to get them. We had them at Christmas, but they're the floating candles, and I'm gonna hang them in my room, because I was like, oh my god, that's like Harry Potter. The floating candles. I love them, but they take 2 AA batteries a piece, so that's a lot of batteries. But I just thought I had to get those because those were really cool. And then we'd gone out of town for a doctor's appointment, and we went to Barnes and Noble, and I found these awesome books. they had a bunch of classic books that are all hardcover. Look what I found. The Secret Garden. It's one of my favorite books, and I loved the movie along with The Little Princess. But this book is hardcover, okay, and it's got these interactive like pages in it too. Look at this. So you can like open these up. This whole thing flips out to a huge garden map. So that flips out. And then there's other interactive like pages. Look at this. It's got a bird. There's the key to the garden. I just thought they were so cool, and it's all like that throughout the book. So I thought, oh my gosh, I have to get that. So it was a little pricey. It was $32.50 for that, but that I just thought that was, I've never seen the books like that in a classic, but they had Native American stories, which I would love to get, and they had the Irish folk tales, and yeah, so I'll probably have to get some more of those. But anyway, I thought I would share that with you because I just thought they were so cool. Anyway, okay, today we're going to get into Alex Collier's question and answer webinar from January 6th of 2023, his number 32. It's probably not going to be as long today as normal. His new webinars, and he goes into detail about how he's switching things up with his Q&As and his normal information webinars. I'm working on transcribing January 16th. It was 2 hours and 41 minutes. And normally they used to be 2 hours, and he keeps extending them longer and longer. So it's taking me longer time to transcribe all these for you guys. So anyway, today we're going to get into question and answer Alex Collier, January 6th of 2023. He says, hello, knights, ladies, and gentlemen. He says, fair maidens, Jedis, Jedettes, Terrans, boots on the ground, Space Force, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to be here one more time. He says, listen, a couple of things to talk about first before we go. He says, we're going to change the question and answer format. All right. He says, I want to address questions that are relevant to where we are today and to mostly current information. I'm not going to answer questions going forward that I dealt with in the 90s. He says, it's just not going to happen. Okay. So just a heads up on that, because I've already addressed it for 30 years and I'm just going to burn up time doing that again. If you really want to know, somebody here who's been following the information can tell you where to look. He says, number 2, the chat, the online chat, as we're doing the online webinars and the question and answers. He says, now we've had some real jerks here. Sorry if it's shaking because the dog's on the bed again. He says, we've had some real jerks in the chat room, insulting, intimidating, and just wreaking havoc. And there are some who think we should just continue the chat. He says, now I understand what it's like to not have people you can talk to. And I understand a lot of people come onto the chat because they feel like they're talking to family. It's not necessarily opposed discontinuing. He says, I'm not necessarily opposed to discontinuing the chat, but there has to be some behavior modifications. He says, now, if you want to talk about Corey Good, you want to talk about others, he says, do it someplace else, all right? Or I will turn the damn thing off. He says, now, it's not that I'm opposed to their information. This is just not the forum for it. End of story. He says, it's just not. But if you want to talk about yourself and share and ask questions, he says, of each other, that's another thing. But to come in here and promote somebody else, he says, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. He says, okay, as far as I'm concerned, that's bullshit. So you'll have an opportunity to go onto their webinars, their chats, and their blogs and do all that. He says, you just won't be able to do it here. He says, or disrupt all of it. He says, now, regarding the chat, I would like some feedback as to whether or not you think we should continue with the chat. And you can do that on Knights of Terra on Telegram, or you can address Shrooms of Terra. He says, or Knights of Terra on Signal, or email us directly at galahad1818@outlook.com. Says, and we'll make a decision. We'll just see what you guys think, and I don't need long dissertations. I don't need 3-page letters of anything. Just tell me why it's important to you in a yes or no, okay? Thank you very much on that. That's kind of how, like, I don't go into every single question, like I said, because a lot of it's repetitive, and people just have to do their own research and go back and watch his other videos that are free. The question and answer, he says, we're going to do in a different way. He says, we just need to. If anybody hears anything regarding the Supreme Court, while we're on the question and answer today, please post it in the chat. I can't do both on this computer, so I don't know if we're going to hear anything today or not, but there's so much going on. I think that was during the Brunson case. He says, and I don't have any current information on the new financial system or the revaluation of global currencies from a fiat to an asset-backed system. He says there's nothing new today. There's rumors, but that isn't news. There's always been rumors, all right? So if I hear anything definitive, you guys will be the first to know. So, okay, those who sent me a donation, thank you very much. If going forward, if you submit your physical address in the donation, he says, I will send you a personal note in the mail. For those that haven't, then it's going to have to be an email, providing I can get through to do that. He said, look, there is a lot of things going on. There is more rumors of war and all this stuff. He says, ladies and gentlemen, understand the pockets of deep state that they're gasping for air. He says they're extremely desperate and their toolbox is extremely limited. Doesn't mean they don't have resources, but their toolbox, their way of going about things is very, very different, is very similar. It's limited, and that is that they can't make you afraid of it. And they have no idea what to do. There are a lot of benevolent resources on this, all over this, that they are doing everything possible on 3 dimensions to protect humanity. He said, so when you hear information that's designed to scare you, please take a step back and really look at the situation. Number 1, who's telling it to you? 2, what would be their motivation to put you into fear? And 3, what would be their intention? Would it be to harm humanity? He says, well, they're assholes. He says, they're assholes, all right? He says, they're assholes. And these people are boxed in and they are going to be removed from the equation because there's no more deals. There are no more deals. They're going to be removed from the equation. And so it is, okay? He says, so there'll be some other stuff coming up during the question and answer, I'm sure, that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. before we got started, I wanted to read something to you. Sorry, my nose is plugged up, so I sound like I have a cold, but I think it's just allergies. He says, I wanted to read something from you that I got from Mornay on November 3rd of 1996. It seems extremely relevant to today as well. It says, during previous past times in your third density, education of the soul took many, many incarnations of life and death of your physical bodies. Situations and reincarnations would reflect the system. It would appear all beings would transcend their physicalness in accordance to the consciousness attained, since it appears your races have no concept of the law of consistency, became very fragmented in extremes. Religions became divisions of beliefs, and conflicts among your races took place. The worships of belief systems and idolatry came into existence. Now the technology of advanced races and higher densities have taken control of your evolutionary systems. By the means of these systems, control the evolution of certain and reincarnational systems are now becoming history by this means. Your races, Alex, and others than yours have probability of obtaining your full essences. The reason for telling you this in clarity is to free you of the conflicts and contradictions, so your races can attain the truth as soon as possible. So don't ask us about yourself. Ask about yourself and to your own selves. If your races cannot attain the truth and cannot be unified with your original intent, we will not be able to be in touch with your planet, races. Since the ego consciousness of your races still goes on, since you cannot break the denial of your inner self, your race becomes detrimental to your planet and to your planetary systems. At this moment, there are many beings who cannot attain genuine respect for self and self-awareness in our galaxy. They are as well being kept under control. Their evolutions are being kept in an indirect way. Your races have also been persecuted and manipulated by other galactic races from planetary systems negatively charged, other than your own. Since during your different past time periods, they have tried to prove your ancestry in their own technical power. Fear has been created in your races. We have returned to convey the truth, to erase these fears. Since your planet is the site of the most primitive and the high maturity, it is very full of contradictions. Your religions have helped for many to evolve, but have not been released. Your races have refused to let go of systems of beliefs that have not served your planet for the last 453 rotations of your star. And he says, now remind you, this was in 1996. By freeing you of this with the use of common sense, we hope your races will attain your own selves and become fully independent. Be at one. He says, now this is Mornay, November 3rd, 1996 was when he got that message. He says, now, we know we've come a long way from here. We have, because we know of the direct intervention, and we know from information I've shared with you, already between 17 and 18% are in fifth density consciousness. 40% is now in fourth density consciousness, and basically the balance is moving into fourth, and they're questioning everything they know about the third density. It says, so we know we've been moved from that place, but I just thought it was relevant to share that with you because it's important to know. because we don't have a measure. We're in the middle of the weeds here. It says that we don't necessarily have a measure by those who are outside looking in. And I think it's really important to have those markers and to see the progress ourselves. So that's why I thought it was important. And before we end this, I'm going to read something that I also got from Mornay, February 25th of 1995, about fifth density, and it's titled Starting Over. But I'll end the question and answers with this because it's great stuff. It says, and it shows us the movement and it gives us the marker of where we were then and where we are now. It says, okay. He always says, okay. And because a lot of people are like, is anything changing? Is anything happening? And of course, all we have is the outside stuff, and not many have realized how much they've changed on the inside because we've been stuck in survival over and over and over again. And it's really tough to measure the progress in a material way, in a spiritual way, because we're always in survival. Okay? He says, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be reading these questions with him, meaning JP, or alongside as he's doing it. And if it's something I don't want to deal with, I'll just say go to the next question because I want this to be relevant, all right? It needs to be relevant. So let's do the first question. He says, I like the first question. So first question was, in the last Dr. Michael Solo interview with super soldier Mary Beaver, she said that everyone on the planet has been taken by deep state and cabal programs, and that would have been billions of persons for all intents and purposes. What's your take on that? And Alex says, okay, thank you so much for asking the question. I can't say what her actual intention is because I haven't seen the interview with Dr. Sala, but here's my take just on the question. Now, if you look at the food chain, the SHOTS program, the medical system, the educational system, dumbing down everyone, and of course TV media, then I would say there's something to it. Said that we've all been subject to the programming, but to say that we've been taken in a physical way, he says no, that simply isn't true. But we all have been exposed to the Cabal programs. Yes, we have. Is everybody underneath it, under those programs? Absolutely not. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 40% of the population consciously moving into fourth or in fourth density. He says we wouldn't have 17 to 18% into fifth density. So clearly those programs haven't worked. We have broken out of that, he says, and in fact, of remaining 30% is questioning the reality they see every day. It's massive, he says. That's massive. So the programming has failed. It is collapsing on itself. It says those who are stuck in 2D thinking, he says, well, there's always hope for them. So based on the question, I do not agree with Mary that billions have been taken into this. I simply don't get it. All right. Next question. If the Matrix came down a couple of years ago, would that mean children being born now have full knowledge of who they are? And he says that is an excellent question, and I do not know. He says, I don't know. I would have to know every child coming in. There are instances where people are putting up information of children just casually talking about stuff. That shows a very heightened awareness of all things cosmic. But if I had children that were young or grandchildren that were here, which I don't yet, he says, that were awake, I would do everything I could to protect them. Says, anyway, I can tell you honestly, they'd be homeschooled. says, there's no way I'd put them into this educational system, and I would do it myself. He says, I would homeschool my children or grandchildren, and uh, and if I had to do it again, he says, so I don't know the answer to that question. Next question. Were the original Luciferians a high-density soul group that volunteered to serve as negativity polarized actors to provide contrast for humanity to evolve? If so, who was their leader, the original, and who was the original Lucifer? He says that's a great question, and that's come up many, many times over the years of a specific soul group agreed to come in and play the assholes in order to force humanity to see the contrast and to choose what it is that they wanted. So that's been bantered about quite a bit, and that's not one someone can easily dismiss as no, there's no way, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy and courage to be an asshole. He says that is unless you are an asshole. And that's just genuinely who you are as a soul. You have disdain and disrespect, and you have no problem coercing and manipulating other people because you're seeking power over. He says that's again another question I don't know how to answer. He says I really don't know. I just don't know. So if I get an answer to that, I will of course let you all know. Next question. Do you remember your past life as a Templar Knight? If so, can you tell us about it and what happened, or any other past lives? And Alex says, I do. And one of my most significant was very early when the Templars were not infiltrated, and we discovered there was, in fact, the bloodline. We also understood that there was another rabbi who was extremely powerful, who had a very large following, who was erased from history by Caesarean edict and papal edict, and his name was known by the name Rabbi Roy, R-O-I. And there was also Simon of Syria, who was a contemporary and a friend of John the Baptist. Says, but that's another conversation. He kind of laughs and he says, most of the history we've been taught is not true, or we've been given 1% of the reality, and the rest of it was altered and changed in order to fit a political agenda. So that's another conversation for another time. So yes, I am aware of some of my stuff, but I don't know how much of that I'm going to share with you, he says, because frankly, it's my own business. It's a need to know. It's funny because I think that's why I resonate with him so well, because I am drawn to the Templar stuff. I think I've said that in my past videos. Like I had this dream once that it must have been a cellular memory where it was me, but it wasn't me like now. But I was in front of a crowd, and I felt like there was a prince and a princess there, and I remember the necklace specifically, and I drew it out, and it had a bunch of little like gold platelets on it, and it kind of came down in an upside down pyramid sort of shape. And I just remember riding a horse with the white blanket over it and the big red cross. And I remember like rallying. I was rallying the people um, in like this army, and I was saying, and away we go, and away we go. Um, and I was a woman, and I can't think like a Joan of Arc, but I don't think I would have ever been Joan of Arc because I'm too, this life, I'm too shy. So I doubt I was that. I'm not saying I was that, but there could have been other female leaders in past wars and fights, and we just don't know because we don't know our history. but it was very vivid for me. It's very, very vivid. Um, yeah, memory. It's more like a memory. So being that he had a past life in the Templars, and like maybe that's why I resonate with him so much. Next question says, you explained before as the universe ascends, being in lower vibrations of fear, weight gain, and fallout. He says, does this apply to all wild animals and any higher consciousness beings like humans? And he says, I believe that very significant parts of nature will evolve as well. The animal kingdoms, the aquatic kingdoms have very high consciousness, actually. He says, I can't imagine they would not evolve with the physical planet herself. Maybe not all of them, but when you have great changes in frequency, there tends to be die-offs. History has called them extinction level events. It's only because those particular life forms cannot evolve to another level, so they move on, and new physical forms have to be created to hold a higher life source or soul source. I read in another book, and it might have been the Carriel books, The Great Shift and stuff, and somebody I know, I don't remember which one, maybe it wasn't, but it was some of the books that I read in the past, and they talked about that, about going into higher densities. A lot of the animals won't make it because they have evolved over millions of years, or the ones that haven't evolved, like your reptiles. A lot of the reptiles, the alligators, they're dinosaur like, and they said like a lot of those type of creatures that have not evolved over these millions of years, like they probably will not make it through. This is no different. He says this is absolutely no different. We hear about extinctions, but where did all the life forms come from that we have here now or before? So much life continues to renew itself and to evolve and to change or alter itself. This is no different. He says we're no different. It's just history. The science we've been taught has all been fucking bullshit. Says it's just all been bullshit. And we're going to have to discard virtually all of it because it's wrong. It is wrong. And people have spent millions of dollars getting all these degrees and have perpetuated fake history because they wanted to keep their degrees, their doctrines, or their jobs by perpetuating things they knew is rubbish. It says they're just going to have to start over because they went along to get along. Even though discoveries in archaeology, its science, neuroscience, and quantum physics have proved virtually everything we've been taught is wrong, but you know how all that's going to come out. It says it's already coming out, which is why I and others have said that there's nothing that we have currently that we should even worry about keeping. We're literally going to have to rebuild everything from scratch. He says, and I'm talking about belief systems, science, knowledge. Says we were taught fake history in order to enslave our minds and our hearts and our souls because we were the ones creating reality. We were the ones literally creating the matrix and enslaving ourselves. And now that we've stepped out of that, now that we see that, those who have done this to us had no ability to create like we can. We were the ones doing it. All they had to do was convince us that it was a reality. Now that we're realizing that's rubbish and we're beginning to see that reality is fake and it's false, we're going to be going about rebuilding something that is authentic, something that is in fact connected to all the dimensions and to the entire galaxy and the universe. Yes, can't wait. Says that's the work that's before us, which is why it's so important that the foundation we build today and moving forward
is important, is so important that we really uh, do our due diligence. That what many of us came in to do is to rebuild the world for future generations, to give this humanity a real opportunity to succeed and to evolve because we're that powerful together. We really are amazing. It's amazing. He says it's just amazing. And on that note, if you haven't watched the new Jonah Jenton video she put out about a message to humanity or important message, I will try to remember and put the link in. Let me write it down. It is absolutely wonderful. She took a bunch of people and she asked them a question and she said, what would you tell 4 million people if you could? And it is a compilation of like the best, like it will make you cry. It will just put so much joy back into your life. Um, Humanity is awesome. You have to watch that video. It's like 52 minutes long, but it is a fabulous video. If you are feeling down and you need to be inspired about humanity, watch that video. So I'll try and remember to put her link in there. The next question, is there a dimension where evil does not exist? And Alex says, my understanding is anything above sixth. Sixth and above, he says, and I should say there's no contrast. So I know there's people saying, oh, we've got reptilians from the sixth dimensions invading and manipulating. He says, I don't know of any other way to say this. He says, to my knowledge and to my personal experience with the A's, that kind of stuff is all bullshit. Okay? It's all bullshit. It's the lower levels where you have the most contrast, where you have the contradictions. And my understanding is sixth and above, there's no contrast. All you do is work on yourself in these civilizations. The physicality that we would be in those circumstances is there to support the evolution of the soul. So that's what I know. And as of right now, I'm totally sticking with that. Okay, good question. And that's an interesting question too, because I think I've said this before in my past videos. George Cavazos was talking about the higher dimensions, like fifth and stuff. They don't have shadows. There's no shadows. It's all light. So I found that kind of really interesting too. So next question. It was kind of jarbled because JP sometimes says these questions so fast, like I can't write it down and I don't really understand. But it says regarding the holistic healing beds, I'm just going to say, do you know if we will be given a version that is more advanced than the Solar Warden program had? And if it will return us back to our original Adam Cadman blueprints. And Alex says, okay, regarding the Solar Warden technology, you're assuming what you actually know what they have. He says, now the thing that most people don't understand, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My dog just jumped off the bed. He says, is military technology advances 40 years every year. And he laughs and he says, so I want you to think about that. He says, how computer technology every 3 to 6 months is obsolete. He says, while military technology advances 40 years in a year, in a 12-month period. Amazing, huh? Said, so I don't know what you think Solar Warden has, but most of that technology is being implemented, and Space Force is actually being implemented into Solar Warden. So let me share something with you about a particular healing bed. One of the technologies, one of the experiences they had was to regrow the leg of a dog. The dog had 3 legs. I don't know the circumstances regarding its fourth, but it only had 3. So one of the meds was used to regrow the limb. First time it didn't take. Second time it began to grow and then receded back. The third time it fully grew, but over a period of a few weeks began to disappear again or shrivel up. The fourth time they did it with the same dog, the fourth leg held. It was solid, and to my knowledge, the dog is still alive, running around with 4 legs. Now they interviewed the dog, he says, but the dog couldn't tell them why the leg shrunk. Okay? So he was joking about that. So it's a learning process. He says, will they fix everything? That's the question. Physically, can they and will they? More than likely, he says, but will they fix post-traumatic stress? Will they heal past life information or cellular memory? Will they fix someone who's an alcoholic or a meth addict? We don't know. He says, we just don't know. Here, he says, we don't know, okay? You are not dealing with those kinds of people in a Solar Warden Alliance program. You don't have those kind of people. You may have PTS people, but that information hasn't reached us yet. These are things we're all going to have to look at as we move forward and the beds begin to roll out. Programs are going to be put together in order to support people who have gone through the physical process of healing their bodies but have addictions because we don't know. So programs are going to be available. They're going to be put into place to support people with those type of issues so that they can heal their entire selves. Okay. So there are still some unknowns, but as far as physicality, it's my understanding much of it can be healed and repaired. I don't know about the transhumanistic agenda. I do not know about the mRNA. He says just yet, we are working as fast as we can to pull all these things together to help humanity with these things and to make these things available as quickly as possible and everywhere that they're needed, even to bring down the cost of the manufacturing of the beds is being worked on. And yes, I guess you can assume I'm aware of this and I'm all in on making this happen. He says we'll just have to see. Like I said in an earlier question, we're hoping within the next 6 months that the first will be introduced. We're working, he says, we're working it, guys. We really are. Because we all have people we know who have taken the treatment. He says, I have 2 of my own who have done that. We're all over this, but we're not going to be Microsoft and put something out to market that doesn't work because they didn't give a shit. He says they'll fix it later. He says that's not what we're doing with this, okay? We can't do that with this. This has to be right. It has to fix to create more problems. So we're working it. We're absolutely working it. There are people who have been working on this technology for years and decades that really want this to work and they want this to be a blessing to humanity. Okay. Next question. Can you tell us anything about the sun that goes beyond what we've been taught by conventional astrophysicists, particularly the spiritual and hyperdimensional nature of the sun? He says all the energy the sun puts out comes from a higher density or dimension, which many videos back I had a clip of a scientist who explained that the sun puts out energy from a higher dimension, from a different place than we thought. He says some of it comes from the fourth, some of it comes from the fifth. We now have energies currently coming from seventh dimensions, coming into our sun and being projected into our field of frequency. We also, he says, all the stars get energy from the central sun. Some of them even get energies from the black hole that's at the bottom of the central sun. Okay? I didn't know there was a black hole at the bottom of our central sun. Energy does, in fact, come out of black holes. And that energy is absorbed by stars and suns and is redistributed throughout our galaxies and our universe. I am sure that somewhere, somehow, energies from source travel along those same gateways, okay? Because everything is source. We're all within source. We're never ever separated from source, which is why when things get so dark, that at some point they're reset and go back to source, which is a beautiful system. Means all broken pieces do in fact find their way home. I love that. And that's a good thing. That's a very comforting thing to actually, he says, because what it means is no matter how much you fuck up, you can always fix it. You will always get the chance to fix it. No matter how broken we find our lives and ourselves, there's always the possibility of healing and fixing it. That no one is thrown away and no one is disregarded. We always find our way back. Says that's a good thing. That's a really, really comforting thing. And it shows that in the end, there is just love. Says there's just love. Love. Next question. Are your Andromedan contacts from the Andromeda galaxy? Which is what I thought, but Elena said they are from the Andromedan constellation in the Milky Way. Please clarify. And Alex says, yes, my contacts are from the constellation. They're not from the galaxy of Andromeda. And I don't know why people have been saying that all along, because I've continuously corrected everybody for 30 years. They are from the constellation. They are fifth density. They are from the star system Zenitae, which is in the Andromeda constellation. And yes, they are part of different councils here in the galaxy. Yes, they have their own prestigious council. So what else would you need to know? He says they're not from the Andromeda galaxy. Not my guys, anyway. So if that diminishes their importance to you, then that's just what it is. So you know there are people who have said the constellation, and in fact, the guy who put defending sacred ground together initially, he says it wasn't even called defending sacred ground. It was somebody up in Washington state who offered to help transcribe some VHS tapes, which he did, and then he asked for permission to send stuff to Nexus magazine, which was published out of Australia, which we gave him, and then that's we knew, and then 4, 5, 6 months later, I get an email from a nurse in North Carolina wanting to buy the book about me so that I could sign it for her, and we didn't know anything about the book. This same person had published the book and was selling it on his website and basically was stealing the information and selling it. We were, of course, he says, we were not getting any monies, any royalties, or even any acknowledgement. He never told us he had done this. So I had to take it all back from him, including the videos, and because it was already out there and people who were asking for it, I had intended to write the information, and Mornay came up with the title when we were discussing this, Defending Sacred Ground. So we just put it out there, and that's why it's free. There's a second version that's still being worked on, and it will be Defending Sacred Ground and Ancient Whisper. And I just haven't done anything with it yet. I was hoping to retire, he says, and do that, but, and he laughs, I'm busier now in retirement than I was not in retirement. And he laughs and he says, it just hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to. And of course, now everything is happening, all the changes and such. But that's the story on Defending Sacred Ground. And many things were left out of the original book because it didn't fit his narrative, you see. That's a whole nother story. And I talked about this over the years. Uh, every once in a while, it'll come up, he says. But, anyways, that's the story you know. People have done a lot of stuff for monetary gain with our work, my work, their work, the A's work. This was never meant to be a business for me, and I promised them I would never make it a business. I didn't. But others did take our work and make it a business for themselves, you see. So, and you wonder why I have some angst about this field. You meet all kinds of people. You really do. Next question. When our deceased loved ones are visiting us in a dream and they're young and restored, do you think they're visiting us or are we visiting them? I have many dreams like that. I've only had a couple of my dad and my mom together being young again. Mainly my mom's always with me, but they are young again. Uh, he says, I think it's both. Uh, he says, I think it's both. He says, the question, Lisa, is it in color? Is the meeting in color? If it's in color, then you're both meeting somewhere. You're out of your body traveling, and they're coming from spirit, wherever they are, to visit you and say hi. Those are incredible dreams. Those are magnificent things to occur and to happen because they're telling you they're okay. That wherever they are, they're okay. It's all good. That their journey is continuing, maybe not here now, but their journey is continuing, and that should be inspiring to you, and to know that death is not the end of the journey. It's only the beginning of the journey. It just sets you up for the next leg of the journey. I mean, literally, all of us have reincarnated before. All of us have been dead before. All of us. He says, it doesn't matter where you are, what dimension. He says, well, I can't speak for 9, 10, or 11, but it's all good. He says, it's all good. He says, that's wonderful. Pay attention. He says, if it's in color, then you're traveling. You are out of your body. That's a soul meeting, okay? That's a soul meeting, and those are wonderful. He says, guys, I love you. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping me and my loved ones. He says, you guys are the best. So many wonderful things are happening. He said, don't get down. Keep your energy high. Laugh. He says, find ways to laugh. Stay grounded. He says, it's all good. The narrative may not be, but in truth, it's all good. Okay? Take care. So, okay. That was it for that. So, not as long today. Yes, find ways to laugh, get out in nature. I wanted to tell you guys too, like there's a couple of channels that I follow on YouTube that really are inspiring and I just love to watch and I look forward to it like every time they come out with a new video. It's wonderful. So besides like Jonah Jitten, um, her videos are always wonderful, inspiring. The Cottage Fairy, these are young people that are just have so much wisdom. It's incredible. It's just incredible. I can't talk like that. I might think it, but I don't have the words, the vocabulary to say it like. But they say it so well and elegantly. Um, I found a channel on YouTube called The Newbies, Newbys. The Newbies, they're a family that bought an abandoned farm in Portugal and they're fixing it up. And they have a little boy, and they just had another little boy. And they're such a wonderful family. Like, they're very inspirational. Um, they're showing how they're redoing the farm and they're trying to live sustainably and they're just very good people and they're very happy all the time and they got this great attitude and their little boys are just so freaking cute. I just want to kiss them. They're adorable.
I mean, gosh, I love it. I look forward to their videos every Sunday. They put them out. Um, and then I just found one last night called Verdant, Verdant, Vanille, which is Vanille. It's a French woman. She's 27 and she's kind of does the same as the Cottage Fairy and Jonah Ditton. And she's very spiritual and very grounded. And she's French and um, yeah, she has her videos and shows how she's redoing this cottage that she's living in. And I absolutely love the house she's living in. It's sort of old medieval. It has the beautiful like wood beams and just the way she's decorated it. And it's in the countryside. And she has this black cat. I guess wasn't hers, but it came to her farm. And so she's been taking care of this cat. And it just reminds me of the cat I have outside. Bella, she's a black cat. And speaking of that, I have finally this feral cat. I have got, it's been almost close to a year now where I've been able to pet her. I'm sitting outside now and she's crawling into my lap. Like I'm able to pick her up and put her in my lap and pet her. And she lets me kiss her on her head now. And she gives me kisses back. And it's just so great to have that, you know, a feral cat. And with the winter, I accidentally sometimes shock her and it scares her. She runs away and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just the cold. It's just I'm sorry I shocked you. Um, but she's a very loving cat. So yeah, so those are the videos that I really love to watch. It's very inspiring, very grounding. Um, it just makes me happy to watch those videos. And then if you do like, there's one called Bros of DK, Bros of DK, and these are like urban explorers, and they go through these uh, mainly in like Portugal, France area, sometimes Belgium. They'll find these old mansions or homes, and they go through them because everything, like a lot of them, a lot of stuff is left behind. It's amazing, and I love to watch them because you see all the old furniture, like all the old furniture's left, all these magnificent wood carved, like framed mirrors and these wooden chairs and the sofas and like all this stuff is left behind. It's amazing. So you're like, oh my God, an antique dealer would have a blast going through here and like reconstructing some stuff and like cleaning it up and refurbishing it and like reselling it. God, they can make some money. But I love watching those too because some of them kind of make you sad when you know like families used to live there and then they just up and left and like none of their family members went back to claim any of it. It's we normally don't do that here in America. We take everything with us. If not, we sell it, you know, or our family comes to get it and they sell it or we give it away, you know, to charities or something. But back there, a lot of them, they don't. They just leave absolutely everything behind, even clothes, you know, bedding and stuff. It's amazing. But it's very interesting to watch those. So if you need a little of you time and just want something inspiring and intriguing, go watch some of those videos. I will try and put some of their links to their YouTube channels so that you can watch some of their videos. So, anyway, thank you so much for putting up with my nasal problems today. I need to go get some nasal spray in my nose. Um, Thank you so much. I love all of you. I just want you to know thank you so much for tuning in and subscribing, all my new subscribers. We're all a family, okay? If you found my channel, you are in my soul family, my tribe, my frequency, and I appreciate you so much. And just thank you so much for being here at this time in the world where it's crazy. And you know, I love all of you guys. I love all of you. I wish I could give you all a big hug someday. Yeah, we'll have a big old party. We'll have a big party, but keep keep shining your light, okay, guys. I know it's hard. Things are happening very slowly, still slowly, not as quick as we want it to, but it will get there. We'll get there, and it's gonna be fabulous. It's gonna be fabulous, and I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. So I love all of you, and keep shining your light. Be that lighthouse in the darkness, so those lost ships at sea can find their way home. And so say we all. Okay, I love all of you, and we will see you next time. It will be Alex Colliers, January 13th. So I love all of you. Bye. See ya. Have a wonderful day.